Hey BookTube friends, it's Carrie. Thanks for joining me today. I hope y'all had a great 4th of July weekend, and if you are off from work today, I hope you're relaxing and enjoying something good to read. My reading week was a bit of a disappointment. I almost didn't do this weekly wrap up because I feel bad that I only have one really awesome book to talk about, but the first book that I listened to this week was Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix, and this is supposed to be a comedy horror, and I didn't find it particularly funny, nor did it scare me, so it just missed the mark completely for me. And it's nothing against Grady Hendrix because I actually really enjoyed the first book that I listened to by him, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying. I thought that was hysterical. It was really campy. It was really fun. And the narration with the over-the-top accents just made it for me. So I loved that one. This one just didn't do it for me. The concept was pretty cool. It is set in a furniture store called Orsk, which is modeled after IKEA, and workers, when they come in the morning, they see furniture items and displays that have been damaged and vandalized, and the store manager recruits some of the workers to stay behind for an extra shift to try to figure out what is going on in this store. And so you have this haunted, kind of creepy store, but it just didn't do it for me. So the concept was cool, and even though I didn't read it as a physical book, I have seen the physical book, and it is a really neat presentation and design. It is made to look like a furniture catalog, and so it does have a floor plan. Each chapter begins with a description of a furniture item that has something to do with that chapter. And in the narration for the audiobook, that was very well done. It kind of set apart each chapter, but I didn't enjoy this that much. I almost DNF'd it, but I did stick with it because it wasn't super long. The one thing that was good about the book was the dynamic between the workers. I thought it was a very realistic depiction of people who work in, customer service and retail. You have the one long-term worker who is just so sweet and helpful. You have the one worker who thinks this job is beneath her. And then, of course, you have the company man who is a true believer in all of the company's rhetoric. So that was well done, but I know this book has had rave reviews on BookTube, and I'm probably the minority here, but that's okay. I wouldn't recommend it. The second book that I listened to was called Present Over Perfect, Leaving Behind Frantic for a Simpler, More Soulful Way of Living by Shauna Niequist. And I've never read anything by Shauna Niequist, but she has done some interesting books that involve food. She's done some memoir-like books. And I feel like this book was a bit of a memoir more than a self-help book. And what it says could really be accomplished in a blog post. I'm going to be honest, I didn't put a whole lot of thought in this pick for this week. I was going for a run, and I didn't have an audiobook lined up after Horrorstor. This one was available. It was very short, and so I just clicked it and went with it. When I'm running, it's a bit difficult to choose audiobooks to listen to simply because I can't pay attention to any sort of plot that's too complicated. And a lot of these self-help books, they do kind of repeat themselves. They're very repetitive, and they also have kind of a positive message. And so when you're doing distance running, it is a very mental game. So I found that these books have kind of helped with some of those runs, but I don't know. I'm going to have to give these books a break because they don't say anything too compelling, and I guess, no one has life's secrets. But I did find it very interesting that in this book, it didn't start out as a book about minimalism or decluttering or that sort of thing, but the author actually realizes that, oh yeah, I need to get rid of some of my junk, and she actually reverts to a capsule wardrobe to make her life simple. So she does have some advice for just trying to let go of people's expectations about what your house should look like and what success should look like. But I would hope most people know that success and what you want your life to be, it's what you want your life to be. It doesn't have anything to do with anyone else necessarily. So, and for a lot of the book, the author actually complains about not being able to write when she's supposed to be writing a book, which I thought was very interesting for a book to complain about the author having to write a book. But anyway, so moving on to the winner of the week, Silas Marner by George Eliot. And this is the first book that I've read by her. And it does check off a box for my Reading Europe 2021 challenge. Since the Czech Republic did lose a match to England, I'm supposed to read a piece of English literature. And at first I thought about reading some of Shakespeare's historical plays because I have been wanting to do that. But I already had the physical copy of this book here, and it's something that's been on my TBR for a while. So I jumped right in. And I will say the beginning of the book is a bit slow. It was hard for me to get into it just because the writing is a bit more dense, and I've been reading, Hemingway and some young adult, which is not very difficult to read. And so I had to kind of readjust my attention for this book. But a lot of people have described this book as a realistic fairy tale. I would go with that description because even though this book is written in 1861, it does have a very bucolic, pastoral setting that is pre-industrial revolution. And so we do see a good bit of struggle between the poor working class villagers and the landed gentry of England. And Silas Marner, he is a weaver, so he works on his loom, he kind of stays to himself, and he is the source of lots of village gossip, primarily because he does keep to himself, and also because he is very knowledgeable about herbs and remedies and tinctures and that sort of thing. And so of course anytime someone dabbles in that sort of healing, it becomes a source of gossip, skepticism, and fear. And so we see this character develop. I don't want to give away the plot, but Silas Marner has suffered some mistreatment that has caused him to kind of question his religion and really question humanity. And so that's one of the reasons why this weaver becomes such an outcast and such a loner. The one thing that he does start to love is money, and it's not because he's a big spender, it's not because he's trying to live lavishly, but he likes to accumulate money and hoard it and look at it. And so that is one of his pleasures, is counting this money. So when his hoard of coins goes missing, that's when the real story begins. And this will propel Silas Marner into the village because he has to seek out help if he wants to get his money back. And so we do see the villagers warm up to Silas. The book does jump around a little bit because we're also following Squire Cass and his family. There are lots of themes about entitlement, wealth, greed, happiness, and belonging in this book. It was a very sweet book. Everything was just extremely well done. This book surprised me because it really checked all of the boxes for things I look for in a book. And when I closed this book, I looked over at my husband and I said, that was a perfect book. And I know that no book really could be perfect. I'm sure people can pick this book apart. But for me, that was just the initial gut reaction I had to this book. And it may also have been intensified by the fact that I had some disappointing reads this week. And so that provided a bit of a juxtaposition. But I don't want to ruin the plot of the book. But I will say that there is a foundling in the book, and if you look at the cover of this, you see Silas with a child. We will see a lot of storylines intersect in very interesting ways. And I love this book. I can't say enough about it. Again, it's my first George Eliot book, but I was really impressed with her writing, and it makes me want to read some of her other works. So if you guys have read any of these books, please shoot me a comment and let me know what your thoughts were. I hope you all have a great day, and thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.